Now, this is a fun topic here. What is next for the Jacksonville Jaguars? Now, if anyone has been keeping up with football at all, you already know that the Jaguars fired head coach Urban Meyer about, I would say, 4 games before the season ended. And the reason that was not only because he was a bad coach, not only could he coach well in-game, but he was also a terrible coach off the field too, with many, many things that I could explain for everyone. But, I mean, if you know anything, obviously you know what happened. Just didn't do well with the front office, not just the front office, but outside the team. There were rumors that not only did the front office lack anything with him, but also the team, the actual Jacksonville Jaguars roster team, did not get along with Urban Meyer. They literally just saw him as a joke. They didn't see him as their coach, not a guy that they could get behind, essentially. And how do you go from that to turning around your team, essentially? And the key thing is the culture. Culture is everything. It is everything. A lot of people don't realize, but it's not just sports. It's your job, it's your life, it's anything. It's not just, sports, but everything in life. When it comes to anything that has to do with sports, job, anything really relating to your life, it first has to do with what is the culture. What is the culture of your job or your team or anything like that, example-wise? What happened with the Jaguars was they failed immediately in the preseason, right off the bat, because their culture was off just automatically. It didn't matter how many wins and stuff the Jaguars would have gotten during the regular season. The culture was not there. And the culture was Urban Meyer as a dictator. That's pretty much what the culture was. There was no family or brethren or anything like that. They did not want to fight for Urban Meyer. There was no reason to. The players just didn't want to play for him for many reasons. So what do the Jaguars do to turn around? And it's the culture. That's what you do. You bring in a coach that can bring the team together and start winning a couple games. Now, obviously, the Jaguars are not going to be able to win too many games right off the bat because they still have a roster to work on. But the worst part is about a team that loses is that if you don't see improvement by the end of that season, in the first year of getting like a new head coach, a new franchise quarterback or anything like that, it's hard to move on. It's hard to keep going because you have players. It's just really hard to keep going like that. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty much insanity. So what you do is you bring in a coach that can bring the culture together, kind of like a Dan Campbell. Listen, whether or not we believe which team is worse, honestly, I think roster-wise, you could argue the Lions have the worst roster in the league. And it's pretty close to the Jaguars. They both have terrible rosters, but Dan Campbell made it to where the Lions had a way more successful season, in my opinion, than the Jaguars. Because the culture he set and those players backed him. They wanted to win with him. That's a coach they wanted to play for. And that's a fact. If you just watch any of the games, any of the press conferences, anything at all, you know the Lions want to win, especially for their head coach, Dan Campbell. Urban Meyer? No, they didn't want to win. They didn't care. They were probably more interested in what they were getting paid, with their paycheck and stuff. So with that, you bring in a head coach, you rebuild a culture, and you cannot get a coach like that ever again for a long time if you're ever gonna, because it ruined your, like, you pretty much also have to build the trust back with that team too, as the organization, as the owner, the GM. You also have to build trust back with the players because you put them in that position. So I would love for them to get someone like Doug Peterson or Jim Caldwell. Those are culture setters and successors. Now, I don't know, obviously, what the Jags are going to do. I don't know who they're interviewing, and I don't know who they've been bringing in, who they're looking at. But those are the type of coaches you want to try to get. Even if it is not those two, you want to get somebody like that. Because you have a quarterback like Trevor Lawrence, and man, the way he played in his last game of the season, he was phenomenal. It was, I've been waiting for Trevor Lawrence to have kind of like that one game that I can point out and be like, okay, this kid could be special. Like, have that little glimpse of hope. And honestly, the Jaguars did not have any glimpse of hope until the final game against the Colts, where Trevor Lawrence outplayed Carson Wentz in the final game of the season to knock the Colts out of the playoffs, even having a shot. That's awesome. No one expected the Jags to win. Even on like social media, they had a thing going around where Jaguars were gonna dress in clown mask because they believe their organization are a bunch of clowns and their team is a bunch of clowns and all that. That's ridiculous. That shouldn't be happening at all. Change the culture. Get a new head coach. You have the quarterback. Build around him. See what he can do. Trevor Lawrence looked great in his last game. If I'm a head coach, I want to coach that. He was doing things that if he can improve on and emphasize in his game, you have a franchise quarterback, which is great because not a lot of teams have a guy like that. So make sure you get somebody to help that man, because like you pretty much wasted pretty much the first year of his career for development. You heard it, and I hope it doesn't affect him later in his career. But when it comes down to it, that's how I feel about what the Jags need to do next. That's what they need to do on their future. They need to focus on new head coach, culture setting, Trevor Lawrence. They need to focus on this next pick that they have, the first pick of the draft. Once again, 2 years straight, they need to build their defensive line or their offensive line. They need to do either or. If they draft, they need to draft either a star-studded defensive lineman or an offensive lineman. I don't care which one, but you need to. It's very important. You're probably, I wouldn't be surprised if they go for an O-lineman. They probably will. I'm thinking they're probably going to go for gosh, my English is so bad. For an offensive lineman, I would not be shocked. If they go for a defensive lineman, it still won't be that bad, but either or is great. You have great talent in this draft besides like quarterbacks. Scout-wise, this is a great draft class for what the Jaguars need. And they need to hit not just on this pick, but they need to hit on several other of their draft picks for the future. Otherwise, those are pretty much my main views on what the Jaguars need to do better and what they need to focus on in the future.